Okay, what you don't want to do is do something that's overly consistent like this, because that's boring, it looks amateurish, and there's no character or spontaneity in it. What you want to do when you're making a gestural drawing or any kind of scribbling is you want to try to make it a little bit, you know, don't think about it too much, kind of random, like go off in places. And the more you overlap something, the more you build value. You can ask Mr. Jones what value is if you don't know. So do you see how some of the loops and the angles and the kinks are different sizes, and some of them are big, some of them are round, some of them are kind of sharp. Once you get to this point, you want to start thinking about where you want that value to build. You know, for instance, right now, I've kind of pretty much built up, I've pretty much covered up the page. So now I'm going to start looking in here, and I'm going to say, okay, maybe I want to start building some mass right around here. So let's kind of focus on this area a little bit, you know, and I'm also varying my line weight. And I just realized just now that I'm making a little pattern, and you don't want to do that. You want to avoid it. So just kind of be conscious of it. But if you zoom out of this in a minute, you're going to see that out here where there are less lines, it looks lighter. And if I want to build some mass, I'm going to concentrate on one area more. And notice how I'm still varying the shapes, you know. And then, so now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, now all of this weight is sort of concentrated only in this area. So maybe I'm gonna go over, I don't know, let's just pick a spot here for a little bit of balance. I'm still thinking about line weight variation. So now it's kind of like you got a little mini cluster and a really large cluster. You also want to think about switching up, you know, how much distance you want to cover in one stroke, and vary that too. Alright, so now let's kind of take a second and look at this overall. I'm kind of interested in these little areas where the lines are crossing over and over in the same intersections, and to me it's kind of starting to look like a city, and I like that. So I think I'm gonna develop that look a little bit more over here and just stretch it out till it goes off the edge. So the more I'm gonna go over this, now you're starting to see where these little intersections that I'm calling, you can see more and more of them, like here's a chunk, here's a chunk, here's a chunk, here's a chunk. And the trick is when you start, don't overplan it, don't overthink it. The thinking comes after you get a lot in and you want to see it as kind of like editing, you know, editing a paper or something. So right now, my evaluation of this is I've got a big mass here still, and it's kind of moving a little bit this way, and there's kind of this little clump here that's sort of separated from it.
Can I talk about it a little bit?
Go ahead.
Okay, so right here, and right over here, and right over here, and right here, and right here, and right here. These little constellations of knots.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for.
That's a good way to describe it.
The problem with this is that it's really difficult to do this and make it look random rather than just concentrate on one area and forget about the idea that you're trying to be random and you start looping again, and you can get those knots, but they don't look like this random stuff. You don't have the variation of line quality. And
I don't?
You do, but when you start to think, oh, I got to make some knots, then people go back to forgetting about the line variation. And the variation she's talking about is varying the pressure on the line.
Okay. This is line variation. Notice how it gets dark and then light and dark and light.
Well, she's doing that very quickly with that other demonstration, so you can't really see it that much. But if you don't do that, if you don't vary your line, what do you call it? Line weight.
Line variation.
Then you're not going to get this really nice look.
And also, if you notice how I'm holding my pencil, if you hold your pencil like this, you're going to get very kind of dark. You can't really get the kind of movement. If you hold it back here, it can be a lot looser.
Okay, back here means it's way up high on the pencil. And I've talked about this many, many times.
And there's also the artist grip. I don't know if you want. I use this when I need to cover a huge area.
And you want to get a thicker line, so you're using the side of the pencil. Yeah.
Precisely.
So that's a little idea about line variation and line weight. Back to this, and we've got my hand in the way. And we've got pretty much what we're looking for. She would continue to develop this so that she gets different values of, well, different values throughout the page. Some of those really tight line knots that I pointed out, and then some of those more gray areas, and then some of those little white places peeking through. All of that adds to the more informed look than just looping and looping and looping and doing the same kind of patterning that you normally do when you're not conscious of trying to break that patterning.
And the reason why it looks more informed, too, is because now it's starting to look like there's layers and layers.
There you go, the
layering. And so what we call that is surface history.
Yes, indeed.
Has Mr. Jones taught you about surface history?
We need to start our own school.
Yeah, we should, huh?
Because everything's going private because we're a big capitalist nation.
You need to delete that. You need to take that out.
Okay, we're not talking about politics.
Okay. What I'm thinking right now is I want to build a sense of this mass here shifting that way. I want to create a sense of some movement going that way. So now, instead of just concentrating on all this area, I'm going to try to get it to seem like maybe this mass started over here a little bit lighter and smaller, and then it builds and builds.
One other suggestion that I would make, and that I'm going to have my students do, is we're going to take one sheet of paper that's smaller and a backing sheet that's bigger so that you can go right off the page.
Yes, because if you zoom back, if you look at the edges like this, it looks really wonky. And it looks wonky for a couple of reasons. The first thing is you can tell that this person is trying to be contained within this. So if you were to make your drawing like this, at the ends here, remember when we were saying, you know, these types of consistent loops look boring? What happens is, as you get to the edges, unless you allow yourself to go off, the edges are going to start to look like there are these loops like this.
So if you were actually to show them what I'm talking about, going off this paper.
Okay.
If you were doing this size paper and you had a backing sheet.
Right. Then you don't have to
go right off the paper.
Exactly. Or you could crop this in.
Yeah, we could do that later, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I see how I'm going off the edge here.
And we're doing a demonstration, and look at how much time this is taking. It's taking somebody that's really good at this and knows what they're doing quite a long time, and we're not done. I mean,
yes, we are masters of fine art. In case you didn't know, I'm a master. I have a
she
master.
could do this for another 20 minutes and really build this quite well, and make it look really great.
Ooh, and then you know
but you
what
wouldn't
else
want
I'm
to watch
gonna
this
do?
for 20 minutes.
I'm gonna take my eraser now. Shoot, I don't have my pencil-tipped eraser, but you know what's cool? Then you can start taking things away from it and adding more surface history.
Mr. Jones did this with another assignment.
Oh, did he? Okay,
Yes, he
fine,
did.
whatever. But see how all of a sudden it looks like there's a lot of depth, and really all it is line.
Right, and it's not, it doesn't look like I'm trying to make a pretty thing with loopy, nice lines that I pre-organized.
What, you're saying my drawing's not pretty?
It is somewhat conscious, but in a very more sophisticated and informed manner. And that's what we're trying to get.
Balance, composition, space, line.
Okay, enough is enough. We're done. Ta-da! Thank you.